Welcome back to Otaku Dai-kun. I'm Dai.
And I'm Ari.
And for this episode, we'll be going over some of the strong women who fight in anime. This topic is near and dear to me, as I find strong women in anime and games to be far more badass than their male counterparts. Most men in media are expected to be strong by default, so the portrayal is often very generic. Women face off against the assumption that they're weak, unfit for battle, and more often victimized. Take all those pressures, add personal ambition, skill, and self-struggle, and you've got some extra strong characters. So no, it's not some kind of geeky fetish to see hot girls wielding swords and whatnot. That's just a perk.
So, let's take a look at some of these awesome women, their skills, motivations, struggles, and achievements. As usual, discussing these characters and their backstories will inevitably reveal spoilers.
You've been warned.
My favorite character in all of anime. A powerful servant participating in the Holy Grail War, wielding an invisible sword and embodying the chivalry and values of a knight. Saber is one of the most formidable women around. Saber isn't her actual name, though. What was her name again?
I'm Arthur, King of the Britons.
Oh, right. She's King Arthur. More specifically, she is Artoria Pendragon, the young woman who drew Caliburn, the sword in the stone, and dedicated her life to being King of Britain. But wait, King Arthur's a guy, right? Not in Fate's Stay Night. Saber took upon herself the title of king, and was treated like a man, concealing her gender, and even married Lady Guinevere out of formality. Because of this, she went down in legend as a man, despite actually being a woman. During battle, Saber has many talents. She wields Excalibur, the sword bestowed by the Lady of the Lake, and keeps it hidden by a magic called Invisible Air to conceal her identity. When fully invoked, she can unleash a devastating anti-fortress beam of light, capable of destroying battleships and giant creatures in a single strike. She fights by utilizing Mana Burst, an ability to channel mana throughout her armor, sword, and body to augment her abilities. She also has incredible magic resistance, so basic magic has no effect on her. Her blessing from the Lady of the Lake gives her an ability to walk on water. Her ability to ride horseback, when summoned by the Grail, translates into an ability to mount and ride any vehicle, such as a bike, car, airplane, or motorcycle. Lastly, when she's in possession of Excalibur's scabbard, Avalon, she can deflect and repel even the strongest of attacks aimed her way. Saber is a character who is always struggling with a latent desire to live as a normal girl, and her oath and duty as a king. When she became king, she gave up any selfishness and personal interest she had and devoted her entire being to serving her country. Even after death, she seeks the Holy Grail in order to further serve her people, first by trying to redo her life as a king, and later to redo the selection of the king altogether. Only after being convinced by her master Shiro is Saber able to accept that she did her best as king and can finally act for herself. Her struggles are sincere and profound, demonstrating her inner strength as well as her combat prowess.
Akame's strength is not something that she chose, but was instead forced upon her. As a child, she and her sister Kurome were sold to the Empire to be trained as assassins. After succeeding in a deadly exam, the sisters were separated from each other. From there, Akame was forged into a skilled assassin for the Empire. She eventually took this strength and, after discovering the corruption and evil within the Empire, joined Night Raid, a band of rebels aiming to overthrow the Empire. Doing this came at the expense of her sister, who would from then on be her mortal enemy and rival. Akame fights for no other reason than to kill. Her katana Murasame supports this endeavor, as it is coated in an extremely lethal poison that kills anyone exposed to it. Her strength comes from her ability to take a skill she was forced to acquire and find a way to use it for the sake of justice.
These fighting sisters are vicious rivals, but they make an even more powerful team. Ryuko is on a mission to discover and seek revenge upon her father's murderer. She's brash and reckless, but harnesses her intensity to beat down her opponents. Satsuki adopts a composed demeanor, working to strengthen her school into an army capable of destroying her evil mother. Both women are willing to do whatever it takes to gain power and achieve their goals, even if it means wearing and mastering the kamui, special uniforms capable of granting their wearers physical augmentations and unique combat abilities. Both are strong on their own, possessing both natural ability and skill in combat. Ryuko, in particular, has enhanced physical strength due to being infused with life fibers as an infant. Upon realizing this, she struggles to understand herself and her humanity, fearing that she's some sort of monster. She fights with a scissor blade, one half of a pair of scissors her father made to cut life fibers. She and Satsuki are typically more powerful when donning their kamui and entering life fiber synchronization. This allows Ryuko to use her blade to perform decapitation mode and absorb opponents' life fibers. Senketsu gives her other abilities, such as transforming into blades and even flying via different transformations. Satsuki fights with the secret sword Bakuzan, which is also sharp enough to sever life fibers. The same materials are used in fake toenails that Satsuki can attack with when necessary. When performing life fiber override with Junketsu, she gains similar abilities compared to Ryuko, allowing their bouts to be evenly matched. Don't underestimate these two based on their appearance and revealing clothes. These sisters are one hell of a duo.
Morgiana is a girl born with strength. She is one of the finalists, a race of humans with abnormal physical capabilities. She was taken from her tribe as a child and wound up serving as a slave to Jamil, chief of a desert city-state. As such, she learned to subconsciously fear and obey him, despite her amazing combat and potential. Thanks to the efforts of Alibaba, Aladdin, and a fellow slave Goltas, she's able to break free from her enslavement and live for herself. Despite this freedom, she struggles to determine how to live and how to use her strength. Throughout the anime, she confronts others who try to oppress and enslave her, and she uses her own bravery and conviction to break free, learning that she can use her abilities to save others. She uses this power to help her friends and work toward finding more of her fellow finalists. Most of her combat potential comes straight from her physical strength and overwhelming agility, giving her deadly powerful kicks, and an ability to jump extremely long distances. An exception is her battle cry, a sonic scream that scares off enemies and helps her sense her surroundings. She eventually acquires a household vessel, Amol Silsela, a pair of gauntlets and chains that harness the power of Amon's flames and allows her to climb, swing, and even fly.
Alice is a noble who graduated as a soldier. She serves as a field leader of the Pumpkin Scissors, an imperial organization tasked with providing war relief to the Empire's citizens. Her ambition in the Scissors had transformed it into a force of justice that carves corruption from the Empire. She struggles to balance her life as a noble and her life as a soldier, often being criticized as a tomboy. Nevertheless, she holds herself with pride and a strong sense of justice. She fights primarily with a one-handed sword, employing both offensive and defensive fencing techniques. She also at times wields a double-bladed sword called Mane. Her fighting carries a sense of grace and precision.
Erza is a highly talented mage in the Fairy Tale Guild. She is reliable yet intimidating, as most people immediately sense her strength. She fights primarily via requip magic that allows her to swap out armor and weapons on the fly. She's an expert in swordsmanship and can even use sword magic when defeating her foes, such as using telekinesis to remotely control her swords.
Rin is the heir to a long family line of mages. Her father entered into the Holy Grail War when she was a child and died, leaving her under the care of her guardian Kirei, as her mother was mentally and physically debilitated during the war. Nevertheless, she kept on in her father's footsteps, remembering his teachings and building herself into a talented magus. Upholding the Tosaka name is one of her leading goals in life, but her broken childhood has deviated her from that path. She is selected to participate in the Fifth Holy Grail War, which she enters, not for personal gain, but for the tradition and honor of her family. Rin can cast magic that manipulates the 5 elements, but her main strength comes from converting power, storing magic into gems and jewels to be used later, almost like magical grenades. She can fire Gondor shots from her finger, concentrated mana bullets that damage and curse their targets. In addition, she can use reinforcement magic on her arms and legs, allowing her to jump great heights and sprint long distances with ease. When in a bind, she can also rely on the martial arts she learned from Kirei.
Asuna is a young woman who found strength and determination through playing online games. She comes from a wealthy family, and her parents are very strict about her academic and personal life. She's always been expected to achieve greatness, and has struggled under that pressure. When she purchased and began playing Sword Art Online, she discovered a great deal of freedom. Despite the harshness of SAO being a death game, Asuna blossomed into a skilled warrior with a rapier and prominent figure in her guild. This freedom also allowed her to find love in Kirito, giving her even greater purpose and strength of will. Even when imprisoned within Alfheim Online, she resisted Nobuyuki Sugo's sexual advances and even escaped for a time.
A lot of viewers complain that her imprisonment was in poor taste and spoiled her strength as a woman, but I find that statement in poor taste. You'd give her more credit if you got to see how Kirito would handle literally having his abilities stripped from him, placed in a cage, and sexually assaulted by a greedy psychopath.
After finally escaping SAO and Alfheim, she continues to full dive due to the freedom it gives her. The confidence she gained through online gaming helped her confront her parents and take control of her own future. In the new Alfheim Online, Asuna is recognized by Yuki, one of the strongest sword users in the game, as a formidable opponent worthy of teaming up with.
Sinon thwarted an armed robber as a child, getting hold of his gun and shooting him to death out of self-defense. The event left her terribly afraid of guns, a trait that she was bullied for during her childhood. As a teenager, her fear of guns causes intense, nauseating panic attacks. Luckily, she found relief playing the VR MMO Gun Gale Online, taking her weakness and harnessing it as strength within the game as a skilled sniper. With help from Kirito in confronting Death Gun, she is able to partially overcome her real-life fear of guns. This sets her on the path to becoming a confident woman capable of standing up for herself.
Mikasa and her mother were considered the last surviving Japanese, making them of great value to human traffickers. In an attempt to capture the two of them, Mikasa's mother was killed by a band of criminals, and Mikasa herself was fated to be sold off. In order to save herself and Eren, who came to rescue her, Mikasa acquired a survivor's instinct, acknowledging nature's survival of the fittest cruelty. This mindset allowed her to kill her captor and continue living with Eren and his parents. She grows up having a great fondness for Eren, wanting to do anything in her power to protect him. After the fall of Wall Maria, she enters the army, wishing to follow Eren and fight the Titans together. Throughout the story, Mikasa is undoubtedly one of the most skilled and dangerous warriors using 3D maneuver gear.
Alisa was only a young child when her parents were brutally massacred by a rare, giant breed of origami. Having witnessed their deaths with her own eyes, Alisa was traumatized and suffers from an intense form of PTSD. In spite of this, she fights her condition with medication and becomes a god-eater, confronting the creatures that scare her the most. She's a new type god-eater with a unique ability to transform her god arc between both sword and gun modes at will.
Sango was brought up in a village of demon slayers, having learned the art of combat and becoming one of the best warriors in her clan. She fights primarily with a short sword and hiraikotsu, a massive boomerang. She often fights alongside Kilala, a demon cat she grew up with. Sango dearly loves her brother Kohaku and offers him support during his demon slayer upbringing. During Kohaku's first mission, Naraku takes advantage of his weakness, possessing his body and forcing him to kill his fellow clansmen. Sango is gravely wounded during the battle, but manages to survive. After discovering that Naraku is still manipulating her brother, Sango joins Inuyasha, Kagome, and Miroku on their quest to restore the Shikon Jewel and defeat Naraku. She is a valuable member of the party, and she stays strong in hopes of seeing her brother set free.
Shiki was born to a prominent Yakuza family that uses magecraft to develop dual personalities in its successors. As her brother was unable to develop a second personality, she was chosen to inherit the family business. Her second personality appeared to have a lust for murder, and despite not actually killing anyone, Shiki was always fighting her murderous urges. This hits a breaking point when she grew feelings for her classmate, Kokuto, and feared she could never have a normal relationship with him while holding back her bloodlust. Her second personality drove her to attempt suicide, getting hit by a speeding car. During her recovery, Shiki lost her second personality and woke with the mystic eyes of depth perception. an ability that allows her to see the weak points of all living things. Missing a significant part of her personality and being threatened by supernatural phenomena, Shiki has to rebuild herself from the ground up while fighting her opponents, mainly those who wish to exploit her newfound ability. She mainly fights with a knife, using it to sever the death lines of her enemies. When available, she also possesses great skill with a katana, learned from sparring with her father as a teenager.
Canaan is a mercenary who was trained as such from childhood. She is an expert in armed combat, with her weapon of choice being a semi-automatic pistol. She is unique from other humans due to her synesthesia, a neurological phenomena whereby one's senses overlap and work in tandem with one another. In Canaan's case, it gives her keen senses that help her locate others, dodge bullets, and even hack computer systems. She fights to protect her friend Maria Osawa, as well as to seek revenge against Alphard, the woman who killed her mentor.
When it comes to sorcery, nobody can beat Lina, besides her mysteriously absent and fearful sister. By the young age of 15, she had already mastered most forms of black magic, specializing in highly destructive fireballs and her infamous Dragon Slave, an explosive magic capable of leveling entire villages. This often gives her a negative reputation, with many slanderous nicknames. Nevertheless, she uses her magic to defeat bandits, and has saved the world a number of times, facing extremely tough opponents, most notably the Demon Lord Shabranigdo. Throughout the series, Lina acquires 2 more spells that make her stronger than ever: the Ragna Blade and Giga Slave, attacks that harness the power of the Lord of Nightmares. The Giga Slave, in particular, runs the risk of ending Lina's life, or worse, destroying the entire world. Beyond sorcery, she is also fairly adept with a short sword. Lina undoubtedly fights for her own sake, mastering sorcery to support her own ambitions.
Don't let all the fan service fool you. High School of the Dead is loaded with strong women. A champion among them is Saeko, a woman who seems to thrive in her harsh, zombie-infested apocalypse. 4 years before the outbreak, Saeko was attacked on the street at night by a pervert. While she was easily able to repel and beat him down with her kendo skills, Saeko uncovers a sadistic part of her personality that enjoys causing others pain. While the sadism has allowed her to overpower her foes in battle, it often holds her back from relaying her feelings to others. She fights her inner demons almost more so than her enemies.
Now, while they aren't considered anime in the traditional sense, I want to give a shout out to some other strong warriors that are definitely anime inspired. First, we have Korra, from Nickelodeon's The Legend of Korra. She's a brash, tomboyish young woman who struggles against the high expectations people have of her being the Avatar, as well as against her own enemies and personal training. The other huge shout out goes to the ladies of Ruby, specifically Ruby, Weiss, Yang, Blake, Pyrrha, and Nora, who all excel in their duties as huntresses in training. If you love strong female characters, these 2 series are a must-see.
This list only scratches the surface of all the competent female warriors you'll find in anime. In fact, it doesn't even mention the fighting women of video games. We plan to do 2 follow-up videos, one featuring the strong women of Japanese games, and another featuring strong women in anime that show their strength outside of combat.
Either way, I'd love to hear more examples of these femme fatales from you all in the comments. Until then, celebrate your fandom.